The galaxy was wide, shining, and cruel. Across thousands of star systems, one empire ruled without fear, the Draken Dominion, a race of enormous dragon-like beings who flew through space as easily as birds moved through air. To them, humans were nothing more than weak, soft workers. Humans cleaned their halls, cooked their food, carried their treasures, and spoke only when spoken to. Inside this empire stood the Celestial Palace, a massive floating fortress built from black stone and glowing blue crystal. It hung above a dying red star like a giant spear pointing at the universe. Within this palace lived the most feared being in the known systems, the Dragon Emperor, the ruler of all dragons. On this night, the palace was filled with noise. Dragons, big armored, glowing, gathered for grand feast. Their wings folded tight, their tails scraping the floor, their deep voices echoing like thunder through the great hall. It was a night of celebration, power, and pride. Hidden between these towering creatures moved a small human girl named Lira. She wore a simple dark uniform, her steps light, her eyes lowered. She carried dishes and filled golden cups with glowing blue nectar that dragons loved. She spoke little, worked fast, and tried not to be noticed. Being noticed usually meant trouble. Lira had been on the station for only 6 months before that. She lived on a small farming moon. One moment she was planting crops, dreaming of nothing important. The next moment the dragons came from the sky, took all the humans and sent them to work in different corners of the empire. She had no family left now, only work, only survival, but tonight something was different. A soft, shaky cry rose from the far side of the hall. At first it was small like a whimper, but soon it grew sharper, louder. More painful, like metal being torn apart. Every dragon stopped speaking. A heavy silence fell. Lira froze in place, her hands trembling around a silver tray. She dared to lift her eyes. Near the emperor's throne, a small creature shifted and cried again. It was tiny compared to the massive dragons, only the size of a large cat with soft wings, shiny black scales, and bright blue eyes full of tears. It was the imperial dragonling, the emperor's only child. And it was crying loudly. The guards around the throne looked worried. Dragons did not fear much in life, but a crying dragonling was a danger to everyone. Young dragons could not control their fire. A single emotional burst could set the entire hall ablaze. Another cry shook the air. A spark flew from the baby dragon's mouth, lighting the corner of a golden tablecloth on fire. Servants rushed and slapped it out before the dragons noticed. The emperor rose slowly from his throne. He was massive, easily 12 meters tall, covered in shining silver armor-like scales. 2 curved horns swept backward from his head, glowing faintly with blue light. His wings were folded, but even folded, they stretched wide across the back of the platform. His eyes, deep ancient silver, looked down at the dragonling. "Calm him," he ordered his royal caretakers. The caretakers stepped forward. They were dragons specially trained to control younglings. They tried soft, humming sounds. Gentle puffs of warm air, small glowing crystals that usually distracted babies. Nothing worked. The dragonling only cried harder. The entire hall vibrated. The emperor's voice dropped lower, colder. "Find the reason now." Dragons scrambled, servants ran, but no one understood why the baby dragon was so upset. Lira, still holding the tray, could feel her heart pounding. She had never seen a dragonling before. They were considered holy, rare, and fiercely protected. If anything happened to it tonight, the punishment would reach everyone in the hall. Another cry erupted, this one so piercing that several glass cups on the tables cracked. The emperor let out a low growl. "If this hall cannot silence a single child," he said, "then perhaps many here have forgotten their place." Lira felt a chill run through her bones. When the emperor spoke like this, it usually meant someone was going to die. The baby dragon's wings spread wide in distress. Flames flickered at its throat. It was about to burst. Panic filled the room. "No, no, calm down, little one caretaker begged, but nothing helped, and then it happened. A soft, very soft tune slipped through the air. It was almost unnoticeable at first, like a breeze whispering through a crack in the wall. But slowly, slowly, the crying dragonling's ears twitched. The tune grew clearer, a lullaby, a simple human lullaby. Lira did not even realize she was singing. The melody had escaped her lips without thought, without permission. It was the song her mother used to sing to her on nights when the wind outside their small home would howl like a monster. It was a song of comfort and hope. The tray in Lyra's hands shook, her voice trembled but continued. Every dragon in the hall turned toward the sound. She should have stopped. Humans were not allowed to sing in the emperor's presence. It was forbidden, punishable by death. But the little dragonling looked at her, truly looked. Its big blue eyes softened, blinking through tears. For the first time that night it stopped crying. The entire palace froze. The emperor's eyes narrowed, glowing brighter. Lira swallowed hard. She didn't even move. She only sang because her body refused to let her stop. Her heart was louder than her fear. The dragonling tilted its head. A tiny, rumbling purr came from its chest. It crawled forward, wings dragging softly, and curled near the edge of the raised throne platform. It listened to her like she was the only voice in the world. Gasps filled the hall. "How is this possible?" a dragon whispered. "She is just a human," another muttered. No human voice should calm a dragonling. It is unnatural. But unnatural or not, it was happening. Lyra's voice reached every corner of the hall, soft, warm, fragile, yet powerful enough to silence a creature born from cosmic fire. The Emperor slowly stepped down from his throne. Each step shook the floor. Lyra's knees almost gave way. She lowered her head immediately, expecting fire or death, but the Emperor did not roar. He approached her until his shadow swallowed her small body. When he spoke, his deep voice felt like a storm trying to control itself. "Human," he said, "look at me." Lyra hesitated, her breath caught in her throat. "Look at me." She lifted her eyes, trembling. The Emperor studied her with sharp, unreadable intensity. His wings slightly shifted, creating a wave of wind that pushed her hair back. Behind him, the baby dragon looked at her with calm happiness, like she had become its safety. "What did you do?" the Emperor asked. Lyra tried to answer, but no words came. Her throat felt too tight. "Speak," the Emperor demanded. I only sang, my lord," she whispered. "I did not mean any harm." "Why does my dragonling respond to you?" His voice was softer now, but still dangerous. "I don't know," she said honestly. "On my home moon, mothers sang to children. My mother sang to me. It is all I remember." The Emperor tilted his head. A powerful silence stretched between them. Dragons around the hall watched, tense and confused. A human calming a dragonling, impossible, against nature, against everything the Empire believed. Human singing holds no power. A dragon general growled. "This girl must be using trickery." Another dragon hissed, "Humans must not be allowed near the royal bloodline. It is unsafe." The Emperor lifted a single clawed hand. Everyone fell silent instantly. His silver eyes returned to Lira. Something strange flickered in them, something ancient and searching. He turned toward his dragonling. "Come." The baby creature hesitated, then looked back at Lira, instead of obeying instantly. It took a tiny step toward her. The court gasped. The Emperor's eyes widened just a little, just enough to show that even he was shocked. Lira felt breathless. She didn't understand why this was happening. She didn't know what she had awakened. But the Emperor seemed to know one thing for certain. He took a long breath, looking between his child and the trembling human girl. Then he spoke words that would change the fate of the galaxy. "You will not return to the servant hall." He told her, "From this moment, you belong to me." A roar spread across the hall, some dragons in outrage, some in awe. Lyra's heart dropped. She didn't know if this meant safety or death. The Emperor leaned closer, his voice deep as thunder. "Human girl," he said softly, "your voice carries something ancient, something lost, something my people forgot long ago." He studied her one final moment, "And I will learn what it is." Lyra stood frozen, her breath shallow. Her world collapsing and rebuilding in a single heartbeat. As the hall buzzed with shock, fear, and anger, one truth echoed in her mind: nothing would ever be the same again. Lyra did not sleep that night. How could she? One moment she was a nameless human waitress, walking quietly with a tray in her hands. The next moment she was standing in front of the Dragon Emperor with every eye in the great hall on her. His words still echoed in her head. "From this moment, you belong to me." Those words felt heavy, not like ownership of a servant, more like a chain made of stars and fire. After the feast ended, the dragons left in groups, their wings scraping the floor, their tails dragging behind them. Many of them looked at Lyra with open hatred, some with fear, a few with deep curiosity. Lyra stood frozen beside a tall dragon guard in dark armor. His scales were a deep red, his eyes yellow like burning sand. "You will come," he said in a low voice. "The Emperor has given orders." She wanted to ask, "Where are we going?" but her voice would not come, so she only nodded. The guard led her out of the great hall through a side passage that humans were never allowed to use. She walked with small steps, her thin shoes almost silent on the polished floor. He walked like a living weapon, each step loud, powerful, and sure. The hallway was long and curved, lit with floating blue lights that hung in the air like small captured stars. Tall windows showed the red dying star outside, burning slowly in space. Around it, tiny black shapes moved, dragon ships circling like hunting birds. Lyra stole small glances at everything. She had never been in this part of the palace. This place felt forbidden, heavy with old stories. Sir," she whispered finally. The dragon guard did not look at her. "Speak. Am I going to be punished?" Snorted a thin line of smoke. "You calmed the imperial dragonling. That is not a crime." "But I broke the rules," she said softly. "Humans can't sing in the throne hall." He gave her a sideways glance. "Many rules break when power appears. Remember that." Human power. Lyra did not feel powerful. She felt like a small mouse walking beside a volcano. They turned through another archway, this one guarded by two more dragons in silver armor. At the sight of Lyra, their eyes narrowed. "Humans are not allowed in the inner wing," one guard growled. "This one is," the red dragon answered, "by order of the Emperor." The two guards looked at each other, then stepped aside. One of them muttered, "The world is changing too fast." Lyra walked through the arch and felt the air change. It was warmer here, heavier, full of scents she could not name: metal, fire, ancient stone, and something like dust from old stars. The inner wing was different from the rest of the palace. The walls were covered in carvings of dragons flying across galaxies, burning enemy fleets, sitting on thrones of planets. The ceiling above was painted like a night sky with small crystals as stars. This was the true heart of the Dragon Emperor's power. As they walked, Lira saw no other humans, no servants, no workers, no cooks, only dragons, and even they were fewer here. Those she saw wore stronger armor, carried heavier weapons, and walked with more pride. Why am I here, she thought, why me? At last they reached a tall door with a glowing symbol on it, a dragon circle broken down the middle by a crack of light. The red dragon guard stopped and looked at her. Beyond this door, he said, you will speak only truth, you will show no disrespect. If the Emperor is angered, I will be the one to remove you. Lira swallowed. Remove did not sound like a soft word. I understand, she whispered. The guard pressed a heavy claw against the symbol. The door slid open with a low echoing sound. Inside, the chamber was dark at first, not the cold, empty dark of space, but a warm shadow like the inside of a sleeping beast. Then slowly soft blue flames lit up in the corners, dragon fire trapped in glass bowls. Lira stepped inside. The room was much larger than any space she had lived in. The floor was smooth black stone. One wall was entirely glass, showing the red star outside and the black sea of space around it. On the far side of the chamber lay a large raised platform covered in cushions and cloths, almost like a giant nest, and in the middle of that nest lay the Emperor. He was not in his shining armor now. His silver scales still glowed softly, but there were lines on his body, old scars, marks of battles from long ago. His wings were half open, draped like a cape. Lying beside him, curled up and sleeping peacefully, was the dragonling. At the sight of the little creature, Lira relaxed just a little. The door closed behind her with a deep, final sound. The Emperor opened his eyes. Even seated, he was a giant. His eyes shone faintly, their light reflecting off the glass wall behind him. He watched her in silence for a long moment, as if trying to read the shape of her soul. Come forward, human, he said at last. Lira walked slowly across the floor. Her legs felt weak. She stopped when she was about 5 human steps away from him. What is your name? He asked. Lira, my lord, she replied, keeping her eyes low. Raise your head, I do not speak to the tops of skulls. She lifted her gaze, trying not to show how frightened she was. He studied her face. You are afraid? Yes, she whispered. That is good, he said. It means you are not stupid. She did not know how to answer that. He looked at the sleeping dragonling. He did not sleep for 3 nights, the Emperor said. Not once. Every healer, every caretaker, every dragon in my service tried to calm him. Nothing worked. Lira listened quietly. But then the Emperor continued. A human servant in a simple uniform sang one song and he fell asleep in your voice. His eyes sharpened. Explain this. Lira took a shaky breath. I do not know how to explain it, my lord. Try. She looked down at her hands. They were still shaking. On my home moon, she began slowly, we had storms at night, strong winds. Sometimes the sky flashed with strange lights from the mining fields. I was small then and I used to be very afraid. My mother would hold me and sing. She said songs can make the heart remember it is not alone. Songs are just sound, one of the dragons at the side of the room grumbled. Lira had not even noticed him until now. Seemed like a shadow, half hidden in the corner, a dark blue dragon with sharp eyes. Sound does not calm royal blood. The Emperor did not look at him. He kept his gaze on Lira. When you sang, he said, what did you feel? Lira thought. Sadness and love. I think I remembered my mother. I remembered being small and scared. I did not want the dragonling to feel that way. The Emperor's eyes flickered. For a second, the cold in them cracked and something wounded showed underneath. Sadness and love, he repeated softly. He leaned back, his huge body shifting, making the floor tremble. The dragonling curled deeper into a cushion but did not wake. There was a time, the Emperor said slowly, when dragons believed they needed nothing from humans. We had claws, wings, fire, and endless life. We had war and victory. That was enough. He turned his head toward the glass wall, toward the red star. But power has a price, little human. Even for dragons. His voice had changed. It was quieter now, not less strong but different, older. Lira listened carefully. The other dragon in the corner stayed very still. Long ago, the Emperor said, when I was not yet Emperor, I went to war against a creature born from the dark between stars. We called them the Void Touched. They had no bodies like ours. They were minds, endless hunger, endless whispers. They broke whole fleets with a single thought. Lira shivered. She could almost see it in her mind, dragon ships facing shadows that spoke inside their skulls. In that war, the Emperor continued, I lost many of my kind. I lost half my own soul. He tapped one giant claw against his chest. Where he touched, a faint crack of blue light appeared between his scales, like a scar made of energy. It is a spirit wound, the blue dragon in the corner said. It cannot be healed by medicine. It cannot be cut out. It is a tear in what he is. The Emperor nodded once. Since that battle I have ruled, I have crushed rebels, I have bent systems to my will, but inside something remains broken, cold, empty. The healers say my spirit is cracked. The dragonling is bound to my blood. He feels what I feel. Lira's eyes slowly widened. So he cried because my spirit screams, the Emperor said quietly, even when my mouth does not. For a brief moment the room felt too small, too full of pain, and yet, he added, looking at her again, when you sang, his crying stopped. For the first time in days there was quiet, not just in this room, in me. Lira's heart beat faster. My song did that. Do not become proud, the blue dragon snapped. You are still only a human. The Emperor lifted his head slightly. Silence, Varos. The blue dragon Varos lowered his gaze. The Emperor returned his eyes to Lira. Our records say humans once had a different place in the galaxy, not just as workers. There were agreements, bonds, things lost in time, but all that history burned in old wars we forgot or we chose to forget. He leaned forward, his eyes glowing brighter. Your voice is not just a sound, Lira of the farm moon. It touched something beyond bone, beyond scale. It touched spirit. She felt very small in that moment, but also not useless, not empty. As if something hidden deep inside her had been witnessed. What do you wish me to do, my lord?" she asked softly. The Emperor looked at the sleeping dragonling again. "You will stay here in the inner wing," he said. "You will no longer serve tables. From now on, your task is simple. When the dragonling cries, you will sing. When my spirit twists in pain, you will sing. I want to know if this power is real." Varro's wings twitched. "This is dangerous," he warned. "The court already whispers. They say you allow a human too close. They say she weakens you." "Do I look weak?" the Emperor asked without turning his head. Varros lowered himself. "No, my Emperor, the court will say many things," the Emperor said calmly. "Let them. I will not suffer another night of screaming spirits without seeking an answer." He stared at Lira. "You are a test, human, a question I intend to answer." Lira swallowed. To live near the Emperor. To be near the dragonling, to be a test. It was more dangerous than serving in the hall, more frightening than scrubbing floors. But when she looked at the small dragonling curled in the nest, she also felt something else, responsibility, maybe even a strange kind of care. "I will do my best," she whispered. "Good," the Emperor said. "You will sleep in the adjoining chamber. You will not leave the inner wing without my order. You will not sing for anyone else. Your voice belongs to this room now." Lira nodded, though her chest ached at the thought. No sky, no other humans, no open halls, only this giant, broken ruler and his tiny child. The Emperor's gaze softened just a little. "You feared punishment tonight," he said. "Instead, I offer you purpose. Do not waste it." He turned his eyes toward the star again as if the conversation was over. The red dragon guard opened a side door. A small room waited beyond, simple but clean, with a bed, a basin, and a window facing the endless dark. As Lira stepped toward it, Varros spoke softly, but not so soft that she could not hear. "This is a mistake," he murmured to the Emperor. "Humans are unpredictable. If she harms the child, she will not." The Emperor said. "How can you be sure?" The Emperor answered with a question of his own. "Did you feel it, Varros, when she sang, even at the edge of the hall? Did you feel the air change?" Varros hesitated. "Yes." "Then watch," the Emperor said. "Watch her closely. Watch the court. Watch me if you fear I am blind, but do not interfere, not yet." Lira paused at the door of her new chamber, hearing this. The idea that dragons as old as mountains were arguing about her felt unreal. As she lay down on the bed later, staring at the small window and the red star outside, her thoughts ran in circles. A broken spirit. A crying dragonling, a human song that should mean nothing but doesn't. She remembered her mother again, her warm hands, her voice in the dark. "Songs can make the heart remember it is not alone," her mother had said. Maybe dragons forgot that long ago. Maybe that was why the Emperor's spirit broke so badly when the void touch struck. There was no one left to remind his heart of anything else. Lira turned on her side. In the next room, she heard a tiny sound, a soft, sleepy whimper. Without thinking, she hummed the first line of her lullaby. The whimper stopped. The silence that followed was deep, peaceful, and full of hidden power. Lira closed her eyes. She did not know it yet, but with every note she sang in that dark palace, the fate of humans and dragons moved closer to a point where nothing would ever go back to the way it was. Lira woke before the palace lights turned on. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. The ceiling above her glowed with faint blue lines, like tiny rivers frozen in stone. The air smelled of warm metal and dragon fire. Then she remembered everything. The throne hall, the crying dragonling, the Emperor, her singing, her new chamber. It wasn't a dream. She really was inside the inner wing, the most forbidden place for humans in the entire Draken Dominion. A soft noise came from the next room, a tiny chirp, a small puff of warm air. Lira sat up. She knew that sound. The dragonling was awake. For a heartbeat, she wondered what would happen if she pretended not to hear, if she stayed in bed, if she acted like a normal human who didn't want danger. But that was not an option now. She slipped from the bed and walked barefoot to the door. The large chamber beyond was still dim, shadows dancing under the faint blue flames trapped in glass bowls. The Emperor sat in the same place as last night, on the raised nest-like platform, watching the small creature beside him. The dragonling yawned, tiny wings stretching wide. A puff of blue smoke leaked from its tiny mouth. It saw Lira and chirped again, louder this time, stumbling toward the edge of the platform like a baby learning to walk for the first time. Lira didn't know if she was allowed to approach. She looked at the Emperor. He nodded once. She walked closer. The dragonling reached her feet and pressed its head against her leg, purring like a small engine. Lira felt a sudden warmth rise inside her chest, a strange mix of joy and fear. "He remembers you," the Emperor said. "He does," Lira asked softly. "Dragons do not forget comfort," the Emperor answered, "not even the smallest ones." Lyra crouched and lightly touched the dragonling's head. It leaned into her hand, humming with soft, vibrating sounds. "What is his name?" she asked. The Emperor watched her for a long moment, then, "He has no name yet." Lyra blinked. "No name, but he's your son." "In our tradition," the Emperor said, "a dragonling earns his name when he shows his first true nature. A dragon name is not chosen by parents, it rises from within." Lyra nodded slowly. It sounded beautiful and frightening, a creature deciding its own name, its own purpose. Will you know when that time comes?" she asked. The Emperor's silver eyes darkened for a moment. "Yes, all dragons will know." The dragonling tried to climb into her lap. It wasn't graceful. It tripped over its own feet and fell sideways, tiny tail flopping. Lyra giggled softly before remembering she probably shouldn't laugh in front of an emperor, but the Emperor did not react with anger. He watched quietly, almost peacefully. Almost. After a moment he said, "Pick him up." Lyra gently lifted the dragonling into her arms. It curled instantly, closing its glowing eyes. She expected its scales to feel rough or hard, but they were warm and surprisingly smooth, like soft metal warmed by sunlight. "He likes being held," Lyra whispered. "All young dragons do," the Emperor said, "but he has never let anyone hold him, not even his caretakers." Lyra felt her stomach twist, a mix of guilt and pride. "I didn't mean to take." "You took nothing," the Emperor said. "You gave what no dragon could." There was something behind his words, something heavy. Lyra looked up. "My singing, does it still help you, my lord?" The Emperor's jaw tightened. He looked away toward the glass wall. "We will learn," he said. "In time." That meant yes, that meant the wound in his spirit, the silent scream inside him, had faded for a moment when she sang. "What am I?" Lyra wondered. "What is my voice?" But there was no answer yet. A soft knock came at the far door. The red dragon guard from last night, Gorn, entered, carrying a large data tablet. Blue symbols scrolled across it. "My Emperor," Gorn said, bowing his head, "the council demands an update." "They will wait," the Emperor replied without turning. "They won't be quiet," Gorn said. "Some are calling the human a threat. Some say you broke law by bringing her into the inner wing. Some even whisper you are weakening." The Emperor's eyes flashed. A wave of heat rolled through the room, enough to make Lyra step back instinctively. "Let them whisper," the Emperor said. "They whisper because they fear what they do not understand." Gorn hesitated. "They want to speak with the girl." "No," the Emperor snapped. The flames in the bowls flickered wildly. "Not yet." Gorn bowed deeper and left quickly. Lyra swallowed. "I don't want to cause trouble." "You are not causing trouble," the Emperor said. "You are revealing it." She wasn't sure what that meant. The dragonling curled tighter in her arms, purring louder. She stroked its small neck and felt a calmness spread through her. The Emperor watched her. "What are you thinking?" he asked suddenly. Lyra blinked. "Me? Oh, I was thinking he is cute." For a second, just a second, the Emperor's mouth twitched in a way that was almost a smile. "Almost." "You are strange," he said. Lyra blushed. I'm sorry. It is not an insult." He said, "It is an observation." She wasn't sure if dragons had humor or if this was as close as they came to it. Hours passed. Servants brought food, though none dared enter the chamber. They left trays at the door and fled. Lyra saw only glimpses of them. None looked at her. They looked terrified of stepping too close or even breathing near the Emperor's son. Lyra ate quietly on a small stool, bread, fruit. A warm drink that tasted like spiced metal. The Emperor did not eat. Dragons ate rarely and usually only when preparing for war. The dragonling climbed her shoulders, tripped over her hair, and curled around her neck like a scaly scarf. Lyra giggled again. "You should name him," she said without thinking. The Emperor's wings twitched. "That is not how our names work." "Oh," Lyra said quickly. "Sorry." But the Emperor paused, thinking. "What name would you give him?" Lyra froze. She had never named anything except goats on her farm. She looked at the tiny dragonling now chewing on her sleeve. "I think," she smiled. "I think he looks like a little spark, maybe Ember." The Emperor stared at her for a long, unreadable moment. Then he said, "Ember." He tested the sound in his mouth. "It suits him, even if it is not yet his true name." Lyra's heart warmed. The dragonling Ember sneezed a tiny spark as if agreeing. Later, while the Emperor spoke quietly with Varos about the council, Lyra sat on the floor with Ember, letting him explore. He chased his own tail, pounced on shadows, and tried to bite his reflection in the glass wall. Every time he stumbled or cried in frustration, Lyra sang a soft line of her lullaby. Every time, Ember calmed. Every time, the Emperor's eyes flicked toward her, as if listening too, as if needing it, as if afraid to need it. When night came, the Emperor dismissed Varos and Gorn. Lyra started toward her chamber but stopped when she heard the Emperor's voice. "Do not sleep yet." She turned. "My lord." He stood near the window, staring out at the dying star. "I want you to sing." Lyra's heart skipped. She held Ember against her chest as he yawned. "Now?" she asked. "Yes," the Emperor said. "Sing until I say stop." She took a slow breath, then she began. Her voice filled the chamber, soft, warm, fragile. A simple human melody, a melody that did not belong in a palace of fire and power. As she sang, Ember fell asleep in her arms, curled like a warm stone, but something else happened. The air around the Emperor shimmered, his wings relaxed, his shoulders lowered, the blue crack of light on his chest dimmed as if soothed, his eyes closed, his breathing slowed, and for the first time since she had met him, he looked at peace. Lyra finished the song slowly, carefully, like placing the final stone on a fragile tower. Silence filled the room. The Emperor opened his eyes. They were softer, not kind, not gentle, but quiet. Your voice, he said, pulls something inside me back from the dark. Lira held Ember closer. Does it hurt? No, he said. That is the dangerous part. It does not hurt at all. She didn't know what to say. He stepped closer, not threatening, just present, silver scales glowing faintly like moonlight. You will he said, not because I command it, but because my spirit needs this. Lira nodded slowly. I understand, do you? He asked, leaning closer. This bond may change more than you know. You and the dragonling are connected now, and anything connected to royal blood becomes part of royal fate. Royal fate, her, a farm girl, a simple human, it felt impossible, but Ember's tiny claws clung to her shirt. And the Emperor's eyes, once filled only with fire and cold, now held something else. Something dangerous, something ancient, something like hope. Sleep now, he said softly. Tomorrow your real test begins. Lira nodded, holding Ember close as she walked to her chamber. She did not know what tomorrow would bring, but one thing was certain, her voice was no longer only hers. And neither was her fate. The next morning came not with sunlight, but with the soft blue glow of the palace crystals. Lira woke to the gentle sound of claws scratching stone. For a moment she thought it was a dream, then a warm weight fell on her chest. Ember, the dragonling, had somehow slipped under her door again. He curled on her stomach, humming softly as if she were his nest. Lira rubbed her eyes. You're impossible, she whispered. Ember yawned, his tiny tongue showing for a split second. Then he climbed onto her shoulder and chirped proudly. That was when the door cracked open. Varos, the blue dragon, stared inside, his eyes narrowed. Again, Lira quickly straightened. I didn't call him, he just came in. Dragonlings do not just do things, Varos said sharply. Every action is instinct, every instinct has a reason. He stepped closer, towering over her, his wings folded tightly, his expression unreadable. You must understand, human, Varos said in a low, controlled voice. The bond forming between you and the dragonling is more powerful than you can imagine, and many dragons will not accept it. Lira swallowed. I'm not trying to steal him. Intent does not matter, Varos said, only effect. Ember growled at him softly, puffing a tiny spark. Varos blinked, surprised for the first time. He defends you, Varos whispered. A human, Ember hissed again. Before Varos could speak more, the sound of large, heavy steps filled the hallway. The air thickened, heat rose, the Emperor entered. Varos bowed instantly. Lira stood so fast she almost tripped. Ember perked up and chirped, but stayed on Lyra's shoulder. The Emperor's silver eyes moved from Varos to Lira to Ember. He seemed to understand everything without needing words. He seeks her for comfort, the Emperor said. It is expected. Expected? Varos asked. My Emperor, respectfully, nothing about this is expected. The Emperor ignored the comment. He gestured for Lira. Walk with me. Lira nodded, holding Ember close. She followed the Emperor into the main chamber. Varos stayed behind, watching with eyes sharp as knives. The Emperor led her through the inner wing. High windows showed the dying red star, its light softer today as if tired. The palace felt tense, like it was holding its breath. As they walked, the Emperor spoke. The council meets today. Lira looked up nervously. Because of me. Because of many things, the Emperor said, but yes, you are one of them. He stopped at one of the tall windows. Lira stood beside him. Long before you were born, the Emperor said quietly, dragons did not fear humans. We ruled them easily. They were small, soft, short-lived, no threat. Lira listened, hands tightening around Ember. But now, he said, the council fears what your voice means. I don't want trouble, Lira whispered. Trouble does not care what you want, he answered. Ember nuzzled Lyra's cheek. The Emperor watched the movement with quiet intensity. Your bond with him grows, the Emperor said. Dragons name such a connection a soul thread. Lira looked shocked. Soul thread? It means two beings can sense each other's emotions, calm each other, sometimes even share pain. Lira shivered. Does Ember feel my emotions too? Yes, the Emperor said. He felt your fear last night and came to you. Lira touched Ember's soft scales. Poor thing, the Emperor looked at her with a strange expression, something between curiosity and something softer, something old. You worry for him, the Emperor said. Yes, she replied without hesitation. You fear the council, he said. Of course, Lira whispered. They are powerful. They are afraid, the Emperor corrected. Fearful people make dangerous decisions. His eyes darkened. And some would kill to protect old beliefs. Lira felt the floor vanish beneath her feet. Kill who? You, the Emperor said simply. Her heart pounded. Ember hissed at the air, sensing her panic. The Emperor lifted one clawed hand in a calming gesture. You are under my protection, he said. No dragon may touch you without my command. But will that stop them? Lira asked. The Emperor paused. For now. Later that morning, the Emperor took Lira to a different chamber, a smaller circular room lined with tall metal pillars glowing with blue fire. It was quieter here, more private, a place meant for secrets. Varos was already inside, standing stiffly with his tail wrapped around his feet. Gorn, the red dragon guard, stood beside him. What is this place? Lira whispered. The Room of Echoes, Varos said, where dragons test their spirit strength. Lira felt Ember shift, uneasy. The Emperor stepped toward the center. We will test the bond. Lyra's heart skipped. Test how, sing, he said. Lyra hesitated. She looked around. Are you sure? Ember is nervous. That is exactly why, the Emperor said. We must know how strong the connection is. Veros stepped back as if preparing for something dangerous. Lyra held Ember close, took a small breath, and began to sing. At once the room changed. The blue flames in the pillars flickered. The air vibrated. The ground felt warm under her feet. Ember let out a soft, happy chirp, curling into Lyra's arms, but something else happened. A shadow, thin, faint, but real, escaped from the Emperor's chest like smoke being pulled from a broken crack. His eyes widened slightly, his wings lowered. Then the smoke dissolved as Lyra's voice grew stronger. The blue crack on his chest dimmed. Veros stared in disbelief. Gorn's jaw fell open. The Emperor closed his eyes. Pain slipped away from him like a wave pulling back from shore. When she finished the song, silence filled the room. The Emperor exhaled slowly. It works. Veros stepped forward. My Emperor, this could change everything. Yes, the Emperor said, which is why it must be kept secret. Veros frowned. The council will demand the truth. They will receive only what I choose to give, the Emperor said. A sharp alarm sounded. All three dragons turned toward the entrance. Gorn's calm stone glowed. He touched it with a claw. What news? He growled. A frightened voice crackled through the stone. Council soldiers are gathering outside the inner wing. They demand entry. Lira gasped. Why? Because Veros muttered darkly. They want the human. Ember hissed loudly, burying his head in Lyra's neck. The Emperor moved toward the door. They will not pass. Alone? Veros asked. The Emperor's wings unfurled slightly. Not alone. He turned to Lira. Stay here, he ordered. Do not open the doors for anyone but me. Lira nodded quickly, hugging Ember close. The Emperor looked at her for a long moment. These next moments may shape our future, he said. Do not be afraid. Then he left with Gorn and Veros. The heavy doors closed. The room went silent except for Lyra's heartbeat. Minutes passed. Then angry voices echoed from outside. Deep dragon voices, roaring, arguing, threatening. Ember shook in Lyra's arms. She sang softly, trying to calm him, but her own hands trembled. The voices grew louder, closer. The door shook once, then again harder. Someone outside slammed a heavy object against it. Lyra stepped back, terrified. Stay inside, Veros roared from beyond the door. Metal crashed, wings beat the air, heat pulsed under the door. Lyra pressed her back to the far wall, shielding Ember with her body. A deep voice, different, unfamiliar, thundered. The human is a threat. She must be removed. Removed, Ember whimpered. Then came another voice when she recognized instantly the Emperor. If you touch her, he said in a deadly calm voice, I will burn this entire hall to ash. Silence, then a violent roar shook the entire inner wing. The walls trembled, the flames guttered, the ground cracked slightly. Ember shrieked and curled tighter in Lyra's arms. Lyra crouched, holding him close, whispering, it's okay, but she wasn't sure. Outside, the sound of battle erupted, roaring, scraping, wings beating, claws clashing. Someone screamed, someone fell. Ember's tiny heartbeat raced wildly. Lyra held him close and sang through her fear. Minutes felt like hours. Then finally, the door opened. The Emperor stepped inside, breathing hard, smoke curling from his horns. Blood knot had stained his claws. His scales were scorched in places. Veros limped behind him. Gorn followed, panting. Lyra stood shakily. Are you okay? The Emperor stared at her, chest rising and falling, not with anger, with something deeper. You, he said, stepping closer, are no longer safe anywhere in this palace. Lyra's heart dropped. What do we do? She whispered. He looked at Ember, he looked at her, and his voice was quiet but iron strong. We prepare for war. The days after the council incident felt like the quiet before a storm. The palace still looked the same. The halls still shone with blue light. The red star still burned outside the glass walls, but everything felt different. Guards changed positions. New patrols walked past the inner wing. Dragons who once walked proudly now moved in tight groups, whispering with low voices. Every sound seemed sharper, every shadow seemed suspicious. Lira felt it too. She spent most of her time inside the inner wing, close to Ember and the Emperor. She was not allowed in the old servant areas now. She did not see other humans at all. It was like living in the eye of a storm, watching the clouds gather from a small island of quiet. But the quiet never reached the Emperor. He met with Veros and Gorn every day. They spoke in low, serious tones Lira could not always hear. She knew some council members had tried to push into the inner wing. She knew they had used soldiers and threats. She knew the Emperor had answered them with force. She just did not know what would happen next. One evening, as the red star dimmed to a darker shade, Lira sat on the floor of the main chamber with Ember in her lap. Ember chased a small floating light the Emperor had created for him, snapping at it with tiny teeth. Lira laughed softly. You're getting stronger. Ember puffed a small flame at the light. It dodged, zipping away. The Emperor watched from his raised platform. His wings were half open, his silver scales glowing in the dim blue fire of the room. You notice it too, he said. Lira nodded. He used to trip over his own tail, now he almost flies. He feels your courage, the Emperor said. Young dragons grow faster when their bonds are strong. Lira looked up. Is that good? For him, the Emperor said. For us, we will see. Before she could ask what he meant, the room shook, the floor trembled, the glass wall rattled. Ember stopped playing and clung to her chest, eyes wide. An explosion, Veros said from near the door. He had just entered, but his head snapped toward the sound instantly. Too close. A second tremor followed harder. Somewhere in the distance, something heavy collapsed. The lights flickered. Lyra's heart began to race. What's happening? Gorn rushed in, armor scorched, eyes burning with urgency. My emperor, he shouted. Outer defense rings are under attack. Someone has disabled half the shield generators. The emperor rose in one smooth, powerful motion. From outside or inside, both, Gorn said. Enemy ships have come out of warp around the station, but the shield controls were sabotaged from here, from inside the palace. Veros' eyes narrowed, a coordinated strike. Lira held Ember tighter. Who would attack you here? Those who fear change, the emperor said, and those who want my throne. He stepped off the platform. The room shook under his weight. Council rebels, Veros asked. Some, Gorn said, and they have help. Help from who? Lira asked, voice small. Gorn looked away for a second as if the words tasted bad. Void touch tech, he said. Their ships carry weapons that twist energy. Our outer fleets are struggling. Void touched. Lira remembered the Emperor's story about the war that broke his spirit. Shadows without bodies, minds full of hunger. Her skin crawled. The Emperor's eyes hardened. So the ghosts of my old enemy decide to move through cowardly hands. He turned to Lira. Listen to me, he said. This palace is not safe for you or Ember now. They will come for both of you. Why? Lira whispered. Because of my voice, yes, the Emperor said. Some want to destroy it, some want to take it and use it. Either way, they must not reach you. The station shook again. Distant roars filled the air. Dragons were fighting somewhere deeper in the palace. Veros stepped forward. We should move them to the lower vaults. Heavy walls, no windows, easy to defend. Do it, the Emperor said. Gorn with them, I will hold the upper halls. My Emperor, Gorn said, you cannot face them alone. I will not be alone, the Emperor said quietly, touching the glowing crack on his chest. I have my spirit and I have her voice. He looked at Lira, her mouth went dry. I don't know how to help in a battle. You helped in a war already, he said. The war inside me. He moved to the door, wings unfurling. Veros, he said, you guard them with your life. If the rebels reach them, they will not. Veros growled. The Emperor nodded once, then he left, taking half the heat in the room with him. The hallways outside were chaos. As Veros and Gorn led Lira through the inner wing, the palace's alarms roared. Red warning lights flashed along the ceiling. The floor shook again and again with distant impacts. Once they passed a broken window slit where the void of space glared in like a cold eye. Shield fields shimmered over the open gap, but small pieces of metal still floated in midair, caught in strange currents. Ember hissed at the broken place, scales rising. It's okay, Lira whispered. We're safe here. She wasn't sure she believed her own words. They turned a corner and stopped. 3 dragons stood in the hallway ahead. Their armor was dark, marked with a symbol Lira had not seen before, a broken circle like a world cut in half. Their eyes glowed with cold blue light. Rebels, Veros moved in front of Lira at once, wings spreading. Stand aside, Veros, the lead rebel said. His voice was smooth and calm, too calm. We are here for the human. You will die first, Veros replied. Gorn stepped beside him, claws digging into the floor. You are breaking oath and law. We are protecting our kind, the rebel answered. The Emperor has lost his mind. He keeps a human in the inner wing. He allows her to touch royal blood. He lets her sing poison into his spirit. Lira stepped back, holding Ember so tight he squeaked. My song is not poison, she said before she could stop herself. It only heals. Listen to her, the rebel said with a bitter laugh. Even her words sound like a spell. One of the dragons behind him raised a strange weapon, long, thin, with coils of dark metal around a glowing core. It hummed with a sick, wrong sound. What is that? Lira whispered. Void touch design, Veros said. Twisted energy. The rebel smiled. This weapon speaks to spirit like her voice, but in a different way. He aimed it at her. Everything happened at once. Veros roared and charged. Gorn leaped forward, claws ready. The weapon fired, a burst of invisible force that Lira felt more than saw. It hit the wall behind her. The stone screamed, not a real sound, something inside her head. Lira fell to her knees, head splitting with sudden pain. Ember shrieked in her arms, twisting in fear. For a moment the world blurred, and far away somewhere in the palace another sound answered. A deep, broken roar of pain. The Emperor, Lira gasped. The weapon had hit the spirit of the palace itself. And through it. It had touched the Emperor's wound. Veros crashed into the rebel with the weapon, claws tearing at metal and scale. Gorn slammed into another dragon, pinning him to the wall. The hallway became a storm of claws, fire, and screams. Lira curled around Ember, trying to shield him, even as echoes of the weapon's blast rang through her bones. Ember trembled, tiny body burning hot in her arms. She felt his fear, his confusion, and under it someone else's pain. In the middle of the chaos, Lira squeezed her eyes shut. He can feel the Emperor, she realized. They're linked, and I'm linked to him, the soul thread, the connection between Emperor, Ember, and herself. Another blast rocked the hall, stone cracked. Veros roared in anger and pain. Gorn grunted as he took a hit to the shoulder. Lyra's heart hammered. She could not fight with claws. She had no armor, no weapons, but she had one thing, her voice. She pushed herself upright, legs shaking. Ember clung to her shirt. Eyes wide and glowing. Lira, Gorn shouted, "Stay down." She shook her head. "No," she whispered. "If they're using spirit weapons then maybe spirit could answer spirit." She took a breath that tasted like smoke and fear and sang. At first her voice was weak, it cracked, her throat burned. But as the melody rose, something inside her answered, a warmth that was not just hers, not just human. Ember pressed tighter against her chest, and his small heartbeat began to match the rhythm of her song. The air in the hallway changed. The humming of the void-touched weapon faltered for a second. The rebel holding it hesitated, claws shaking. What is that?" he gasped. Varos took the chance and slammed him into the wall, sending the weapon spinning across the floor. Lyra kept singing. Her lullaby was not soft now, it was stronger, deeper, still simple, still human, but filled with something bigger. The melody wrapped around Ember, around Varos, around Gorn, and far away, somewhere above, it reached the Emperor. On the upper levels, the Dragon Emperor stood in the ruined throne hall, facing a circle of enemies. Rebel dragons surrounded him, some armed with void-touched weapons, some with their natural claws and fire. The outer walls had cracked, smoke filled the air, he was bleeding from several wounds. The crack in his chest burned painfully. Every time a void weapon fired, it tugged at his spirit, trying to tear it wider. He almost fell, then he heard it, a human song, his wings stilled. The pain inside him, sharp, black, endless, met something gentle and bright. Lyra's voice flowed into the crack in his soul like water into dry earth. The spirit wound calmed, his breath deepened, his eyes burned brighter. He straightened, towering over the rebels. That voice again, one muttered fear in his tone. "She sings even now." Another snarled, "Kill her." "End it." The Emperor's lips pulled back, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Try," he said. He lunged. With Lyra's song in his bones, he moved faster than before. The weapon's shots hurt less. Fire burst from his mouth, hotter and whiter than usual, melting armor and stone alike. Several rebels fell, others fled. The Emperor fought like a storm, finally breaking. Back in the inner wing, the hallway belonged to Lyra's song. Varos was wounded but standing. Gorn had driven 2 rebels to the floor. The last enemy dragon tried to crawl toward the fallen void weapon, eyes wild. He reached it. His claws closed around the handle. Lyra's voice rose in one last, pure note, filled with fear, courage, and something like love for Ember, for herself, for the strange, broken Emperor who had given her purpose. Ember suddenly burst from her arms and really flew for the first time. He shot through the air like a small blue comet, slammed into the weapon and bit down hard. A blast of blue-white fire exploded around him. Lyra screamed, then the light cleared. The weapon was melted, twisted into a lump of dead metal. Ember dropped to the floor, smoke rising from his scales. For a terrible moment he did not move. "Ember," Lyra cried, rushing to him. He twitched, then slowly, shakily, he stood up. His eyes glowed brighter than they ever had. Tiny lines of blue light ran across his scales like cracks of lightning. Varos stared at him. "That is not normal." Gorn stepped back, stunned. What did he just do? Lyra cradled Ember gently. He was hot, but not burning her. He looked up at her and chirped weakly. "You saved us," she whispered. He nuzzled her hand. The last rebel tried to rise, but Varos slammed him back down. "Stay," Varos growled. "Council will decide your fate if you live long enough to stand before them." Lyra looked down the hall. Smoke drifted slowly. The alarms kept screaming, but for one small moment there was calm. She realized her song had stopped. But she could still feel the Emperor, not in words, not in clear images, just in a sense. He was alive, he was fighting, and he was listening. Hours later, though it felt like days, the fighting in the palace began to fade. The alarms went silent. One by one, the floor stopped shaking. The Emperor returned to the inner wing. He was burned and bloody, but unbroken. His wings were scorched at the edges. One horn had a fresh crack. The crack in his chest still glowed, but softer now, less wild. Lyra stood with Ember in her arms, Varos and Gorn at her sides. She didn't know whether to bow, speak, or stay silent, so she did all three badly. My Emperor, he raised a clawed hand, stopping her. "I heard you," he said. His voice was tired but steady. "I felt your song reach through stone, fire, and space itself," he continued. "When the void-touched weapons pulled at my spirit, your voice pulled back. It kept me whole." Lyra swallowed. I didn't know what else to do." "That is what makes it powerful," he said. "It is not a weapon made by hands. It is something born from what you are." His eyes moved to Ember. "And he," the Emperor said, "is changing faster than any dragonling I have seen." Varos nodded slowly. He melted a void weapon with his own fire. That should not be possible at his age. The Emperor studied the tiny dragonling. "Void-touch tech and human song," he said. "Two forces that speak to spirit, one to break, one to heal." He looked at Lyra again. "The enemy fears you," he said. "Do you understand now?" Lyra hugged Ember close. "A little. They will come again." The Emperor said quietly, "Not just rebels, not just dragons. The void-touch themselves may return in minds and shadows, and when they do, they will try to silence you first." Her stomach nodded. "Because my song can hurt them. Because your song can reach what they twist," he said. "It can pull it back. It can turn pain into something else. They do not want that." He stepped closer, kneeling until his massive head was level with her. "You are no longer only a comfort to my child," he said. "You are no longer only a healer to my broken spirit." He paused. You are now a weapon they fear, he finished softly, and a hope we cannot afford to lose. Lyra's hands shook. She had never wanted to be a weapon. She was a farm girl who used to sing to herself while planting seeds, but Ember pressed his head into her chest, and in the deep silver of the Emperor's eyes, she saw not just power and fire but trust. I will sing, Lyra said quietly, as long as I can, as long as you need me. The Emperor nodded once. Then he said, this war will not be only about dragons anymore. He turned toward the red star outside. It will be about humans too. Lyra felt a chill and a strange warmth at the same time. There would be more battles, more danger, more shadows from the old war. But one thing had already changed forever. For the first time in the history of the Draken Dominion, a human voice had joined the war. The word stayed in Lyra's mind like a cold knife. We prepare for war. She stared at the Emperor, trying to understand. He looked bigger than before, not just in size but in presence. Heat shimmered around his body. Smoke curled softly from between his scales. War, because of her voice, because of Ember. Ember felt her fear and pressed closer to her chest, purring uneasily. Varos spoke first. My Emperor, the council will not stop. They have already crossed the line today. Next time they will not come with questions. They will come with blades. Gorn nodded. Many dragons outside still believe the human is a curse. Some say she is a weapon from the old enemies. The void touched. Lyra flinched. I'm not a weapon, I'm just me. But you change things, human. Varos said quietly. His voice was not kind, but it was no longer full of pure hate, and anything that changes the old ways is seen as a threat. The Emperor stepped closer, his eyes locked on Lyra. Listen to me, she swallowed. Yes, my lord. From this moment, he said, you must understand one truth. The attack is not only on you, it is on what you represent. Lyra frowned. What do I represent? Connection, the Emperor answered. Between human and dragon, between song and spirit, between pain and healing. He turned away, looking out at the dying red star through the glass wall. They fear that connection because if it is real, it changes everything they built their power on. Lyra looked down at Ember. The dragonling blinked up at her with glowing blue eyes, trusting and innocent. I don't want anyone hurt because of me, she whispered. Too late, Gorn muttered. His armor was still scratched from the fight outside the inner wing. A dark burn ran across his shoulder. The Emperor looked back at her. You have two choices, he said. Hide and hope they never find you, or stand and become something they cannot ignore. Lyra's hands tightened around Ember. I am just a human, she said softly. Ember nuzzled her chin. Then, as if the tiny creature did not agree with her words, a small line of blue flame slipped from his nose. It didn't burn her. It felt warm and gentle like a touch. The Emperor watched that flame. You are not just anything anymore, he said. The palace changed over the next hours. Normally, the Celestial Palace was a symbol of calm power, silent halls, sharp guards, a feeling of control. Now everything felt tense. Dragon soldiers in black and silver armor flew in formation outside the windows. Alarm crystals shimmered in warning. Orders echoed through the corridors. Protect the inner wing. Double the guard numbers. Seal the lower hangars. Watch every council member. Lyra stayed mostly in her chamber and the main room with the Emperor as ordered. She could hear the rumbling from outside, the movement of armies, the unrest building through the palace like a storm. Ember stayed close to her almost all the time. When she walked, he ran ahead, slipping and sliding on the smooth floor. When she sat, he climbed into her lap. When she grew nervous, he hummed softly. Trying to calm her back. You're not afraid? Lyra asked him once, touching his soft snout. He tilted his head as if to say, you are here. Why should I fear? She smiled sadly. You trust me too much. From across the room, Varos spoke. Dragons rarely choose wrong when it comes to instincts. Then why do so many dragons fear humans? She asked. Varos paused. Because instinct is not the same as pride, he said. Pride often gets in the way. Later that day, the Emperor did something he had not done in years. He called a full war council. The inner wing's great chamber filled with projected images, holograms of dragon generals across the empire. Their faces appeared in the air as glowing blue shapes, horned, winged, cold-eyed. Lyra watched from a corner of the room, half-hidden, Ember snug in her arms. Enemies gather, one general said, not from outside, from within. Some of the council are speaking with old rebel factions. Old rebel factions? Lyra whispered. Varos nodded. Dragons who opposed the Emperor's rule, who wanted humans either erased or turned into something worse than slaves. Worse? Lyra asked. No minds of their own, Varos said flatly. Living tools. Lyra hugged Ember tighter. Another general's hologram flickered. We have intercepted messages. They plan a strike on the palace. Their goal is not the throne, it is the human. Lyra felt sick. The Emperor's eyes glowed brighter. So they truly believe she is my weakness, he said quietly. Some say she is your chain, another general added, that your heart will bend because of her. Varos glanced at Lyra. They are not completely wrong. Lyra looked at him, shocked. I am not trying to bend anything. Varos sighed. You exist, that is enough. The Emperor spread his wings halfway, filling the chamber with shadow and light. Let them come, he said. Let them show their fangs. I will remind them why I am Emperor. Silence followed, no one dared question that, but in the corner Lira trembled. She was not a warrior, she was not a fighter, her weapon was a song, soft, small, human. How could that stand against dragon fire and war? The attack came sooner than expected. Night, if it could be called night, had fallen. The red star outside glowed lower, its light barely touching the palace. The crystals inside were set dimmer. It was the quiet hour when most dragons rested and the hallways emptied. That was when the first explosion shook the palace. The glass wall in Lyra's chamber rattled. Ember woke from his sleep with a sharp cry. What was that? Lira gasped. Another explosion, closer this time. The entire structure trembled. Distant roars echoed through the halls. Gorn burst into the room, armor glowing with warning lights. Rebel dragons have breached the outer ring, he shouted. They've bypassed the main gates. Someone inside helped them. A traitor, Varro snarled. The Emperor rose to his full height, eyes burning. Their target, Gorn hesitated only a moment. The inner wing, my Emperor, they're heading straight for this sector. Lyra's heart stopped. Ember hissed, tiny wings flaring. They want the girl, Varro said. No, Gorn said grimly. They want the girl and the dragonling. They plan to take both. The Emperor growled low. A sound that shook dust from the ceiling. Over my dead body, he said. The palace became chaos. Lira could hear dragons roaring in the distance, the clash of claws and metal, the thunder of wings beating air. Alarms wailed, lighting the corridors in urgent red and blue. Gorn led a squad of guards to block the main approach. Varro's left to coordinate the defense at the lower passage. The Emperor stayed in the inner wing, refusing to move from where his son and Lira remained. We should run, Lira whispered. Hide somewhere, please, my lord, we can find a place. There is nowhere in this palace safer than near me, the Emperor said, and I will not abandon my own throne or my own blood. Ember cried, climbing onto the Emperor's foreleg, torn between his father and his human. The Emperor lowered his head and touched the dragonling gently with his snout. You are strong, he said softly, stronger than you know, little one. He looked at Lira. So are you. I don't feel strong, she said honestly. That is what makes you dangerous, he replied. The first attackers reached the inner wing's main doors. Lira heard them before she saw them. Break it down, a deep voice roared. The human and the dragonling must be taken. The doors shook as something heavy slammed into them again and again. Cracks formed in the metal. Blue energy shields flickered. Gorn's voice shouted from outside, hold the line for the Emperor. Lira ran to the side of the room, clutching Ember. She could feel his tiny body shaking. She didn't know if it was fear or anger, maybe both. The Emperor stood in the center of the chamber, wings spread wide, ready to face whoever broke through. Lira, he said without turning his head, listen carefully. She swallowed. Yes, if they enter the room and I fall, he said, do not scream, do not run, hold Ember and sing. What? She asked, shocked. Sing, in the middle of this. Yes, he said, your song reaches his spirit. If I fall, he will feel it. He must not lose control. If his power erupts uncontrolled in this room, everyone dies. Lira stared at Ember. The tiny dragon looked back at her, eyes glowing brighter than before. There was something deeper in those eyes now, something wild, something ancient. Will he really be that strong? She whispered. The Emperor's voice was quiet but certain. He is my heir. Power is beyond anything you can imagine. The doors cracked again, pieces of metal flew inward. Varro stumbled back into the room from a side passage, his scales scorched, one wing bleeding. They broke through the second corridor, Varro's gasped. Gorn is holding them, but there are too many. They have heavy cannons and old void tech bombs. Void tech, the Emperor growled, so they dig up the weapons I once buried in the dark. A final crash, the main doors burst open. Smoke poured in, fire followed. Shapes appeared in the haze, big jagged armed dragons with dark armor and red eyes. At their front stood a taller dragon with broken horns and black scars running across his chest. Emperor, he shouted, your rule ends tonight. Lord Karos, the Emperor said, voice cold. I should have known you'd crawl out of the ashes. Karos snarled. You weaken our people, you bring humans into our holy wing. You let their sick voices twist royal blood. His eyes moved to Lira. There, he hissed, the parasite and the young abomination, take them. The rebel dragons charged. The Emperor roared and met them with a wave of silver fire. The room became a storm of light and heat. Dragons clashed in the air. Flames collided, sending shockwaves across the chamber. Stone cracked, glass shattered, energy shields screamed and died. Lira dropped to her knees behind a broken pillar. Hugging Ember close, the dragonling whimpered, his glow growing brighter and brighter. He was feeling everything, the fear, the rage, the pain. The Emperor slashed Karos across the chest, but Karos struck back with a hidden void tech weapon, a black spear that pulsed with dark energy. It tore across the Emperor's side, leaving a burning hole where light spilled out. Lira let out a small cry. Ember shrieked. Power exploded from his tiny body. Blue flames burst around them in a circle, lifting dust and broken stone, shielding Lira from falling debris. The Emperor staggered, one wing drooping. Karos laughed. Look at you, bleeding light, pathetic spirit-crippled ruler. He pointed his void spear at Lira. The human dies first. He hurled the spear. Lira froze. The Emperor tried to move, but Karos' other attackers held him down. The spear rushed toward Lira like a shard of night. Ember leaped from her arms. For a heartbeat, everything slowed. The dragonling spread his small wings wide. His eyes burned white-blue. The air around him shook. He screamed, not in fear, in power. The spear struck the blue shield that burst from his body and shattered. Void energy scattered like glass dust. The shockwave knocked dragons from the air. Karos stumbled, stunned. Everyone stared. The tiny dragonling hovered in the air, glowing like a small star, flames swirling around him. His body seemed almost too bright for the room. Lira stared up at him with wide eyes. Ember, she whispered. He looked at her, then at his father, then at Karos. The Emperor's eyes widened, something like pride and fear mixed together. His nature, Varos breathed. We are seeing his true nature. Karos snarled. Little monster. He lunged forward again. Lira did the only thing she knew how to do. She stood up, her legs shook, her voice did not. She began to sing. The song cut through fire, through fear, through the screams of dragons. Soft, human, small, but it flowed straight into Ember's blazing spirit, his flames focused. His wild energy drew inward, shaped by her voice, not chaos, control. He turned toward Karos and released a thin, precise beam of blue fire that sliced the rebel leader's weapon in half and knocked him across the room. Every dragon froze. They had just watched a dragonling. Barely born control power strong enough to kill an army. Not because of rage, because of a human song. The Emperor rose, his wound still glowing, and spoke in a voice that shook the chamber. Remember this moment, he roared. This is the future you fear, a future where human and dragon stand together. Karos struggled to his feet, snarling. This is not the future, this is corruption. He turned to his remaining rebels. Fall back, he shouted. This palace is lost for now. But we will return, and when we do, not even your human shield will save you, Emperor. He spat a mouthful of black blood, then threw a small void bomb at the ceiling. The explosion tore open part of the chamber. A vacuum shield activated just in time to keep the air inside, but smoke filled the room. When it cleared, Karos and the surviving rebels were gone. Only ruins, wounded dragons, and heavy silence remained. Lira sank to the floor, shaking. Ember dropped into her arms, his glow returning to normal, his tiny body suddenly very tired. The Emperor limped toward them. He lowered his head until his eyes were level with Lira's. You sang, he said quietly. Yes, she whispered. I didn't know what else to do. You gave my son control, he said. You turned a wild burst into a weapon of choice. Varos, bleeding but alive, stared at Lira with something like respect now. Humans, he said slowly, are more dangerous than we remembered. The Emperor looked between Lira and Ember. This was not the end, he said. This was only the first strike. He lifted his head, eyes burning brighter than the red star outside. War is coming, he said, but now we are not alone in it. He looked at Lira. You, human girl with the song of spirits, are no longer a servant. Lira's voice shook. Then what am I? The Emperor answered with a title no human had carried in many lifetimes. You are now the first human dragon singer of the Dominion. Ember purred, curling around her neck. And somewhere deep in the palace, in shadowed halls and secret rooms, enemies began to plan their next move, this time with fear in their hearts. The palace burned in silence. Smoke curled through broken corridors. Stones that once glowed softly with blue energy were now cracked, dim, coughing sparks. The war alarms had stopped, but the echoes of the battle still lingered, scorched claw marks on the walls, shattered glass, the metallic scent of fallen soldiers. Lira walked slowly beside the Emperor, Ember tucked safely in her arms. The tiny dragonling slept like nothing terrible had happened, as if his body needed all its strength to recover from the power he unleashed. Every guard they passed bowed their head to the Emperor. Every guard they passed stared at Lira. Not with anger. Not with hate, but with something new, fear mixed with respect. Whispers followed her like shadows. Is that the human who stopped the void spear? The girl whose song calmed the Emperor's wound? The dragon singer, the words felt too big for her, too heavy. She was just a girl from a farming moon, but the Emperor walked beside her as if she belonged here, as if she had always belonged here. Varos limped behind them, one wing wrapped in healing cloth. Gorn walked ahead, scanning every corner in case the rebels returned. The Emperor led them not to the throne hall, not to the inner wing, but to a place Lira had never seen, deep beneath the palace. Down long stairs carved of blue stone, down past sealed gates guarded by silent armored dragons, down beneath the molten heart of the fortress. Lira felt the air change. It became thick, heavy, charged with something old. My lord, she whispered, where are we going? The Emperor's voice echoed softly in the chamber. To the place where truth sleeps. Varos's voice was low. Most dragons do not know this place exists. Gorn added, and no human has ever stepped inside. Lira looked down at Ember. Then why am I allowed? The Emperor did not answer, not yet. They reached a final door, massive, dark, covered in ancient symbols, dragon runes, human runes, and symbols Lira didn't recognize from any world she had been to. The Emperor placed one giant claw on the center. His voice rumbled like distant thunder. Open, the runes ignited in silver fire. The door unsealed with a sound like a long sigh. A hidden chamber lay beyond. It was enormous, round, hollow, like the inside of a giant carved sphere. The floor glowed with spiral markings. The walls were filled with carvings of dragons and humans together side by side, not as slaves, as partners, Lira gasped. She touched one of the carvings gently. It showed a human woman placing her hand on the snout of a massive dragon while a beam of light connected them. My mother used to tell stories of something like this, Lira whispered. Old tales crushed by dragons hundreds of years ago, not stories, the emperor said, history. He walked into the center of the chamber, his wings curled around him like a cloak. Lira, dragon singer, he said. This is where you learn who your people really were. She stepped closer, heart racing. The emperor's voice filled the ancient chamber. Long ago, before dragons ruled the skies, before humans became weak, a bond existed between our kinds, a natural bond, a bond of spirit. He gestured at the carvings. Humans could speak to us, not with words, but with something deeper, with emotion, with heart, with music. Lyra's breath caught. So humans used to sing like me. Not like you, Varo said. You are stronger. The emperor nodded. Our ancestors called your kind Naratel. Lira blinked. What does that mean? The voices of light, the emperor said quietly. Humans who could soothe dragons, heal dragons, strengthen dragons. Lira stared at him. But humans now were weak. We can't even fight dragons. We can't fly. We can't heal anything. That weakness was forced, Gorn said, after the old war. The emperor stepped closer to the great wall carvings and traced a claw across a deep cut in the stone. A war between dragons and humans once united, he said softly, against the void touched. Lira shivered at the name. We fought together, he continued, for generations. Your ancestors used their voices to calm our minds when the void touch tried to break us from within. They held back nightmares, they kept us sane. Lyra's eyes widened. Then what happened? Why did we become slaves? The emperor closed his eyes. This chamber holds that truth too. He motioned for her to approach a separate wall, a wall blackened by fire. This part of the history was burned, Varo said bitterly, by dragons who believed humans were too dangerous. Lira touched the burned surface. Why destroy it? The emperor answered quietly. Because some dragons feared humans would one day rule us, because the strongest dragon singers could command even kings. Lira stepped back horrified. I don't want to command anyone. I know, the emperor said, that is why you are dangerous. She swallowed. Humans were stripped of rights, Varos added, separated, forbidden to sing, forbidden to learn their old power, and over centuries the bond faded. But the blood remembers, the emperor said. He looked at Lira with eyes like molten silver. And your voice proves it. Lira looked down at Ember. The tiny dragonling stared back, his glowing eyes reflecting the carvings on the walls. My voice awakened him, Lira whispered. And he awakened you, the emperor said. Something clicked inside her chest. She felt it, not just understanding, but recognition, as if something inside her soul agreed. But why me? She asked. Out of all humans, why me? The emperor walked closer. His shadow covered her, but it didn't feel threatening. Because your bloodline still carries the lost memory. Because your spirit resonates with ours. Because when you sing, time listens. He paused, and because my son chose you. Lira blinked. Chose me? Dragons do not bond easily, Varo said, not even with their own kind, but that dragonling flew to you, not his caretakers, not his father, you. Ember chirped and touched his head to Lyra's hand, confirming it. But what does this mean? Lira asked softly. For me, for him. The emperor answered, it means the old world is waking, and you stand at the center of it. A sudden tremor passed through the chamber, not an attack, something deeper, a pulse, a vibration, a sound like a long-forgotten heartbeat. The carvings on the walls began to glow, the spiral markings lit beneath their feet. Energy crackled through the room. Lira stepped back in alarm. What's happening? Varo spread his wings defensively. The chamber is reacting to her. The emperor's eyes widened. No, it is reacting to both of them. He looked at Ember, still glowing softly in Lyra's arms. The dragonling's chest pulsed with light in rhythm with the chamber. They are attuned, Gorn shouted. The chamber responds to the bond. The emperor took a deep breath. His voice grew deep and full of awe. This has not happened since the first age. A column of blue light rose from the floor surrounding Lira and Ember, not hot, not painful, just powerful. Lyra's hair lifted slightly in the energy. Ember's wings spread with instinct. What do I do? She cried. The emperor stepped closer but couldn't enter the light. Do not fear, let it happen. The chamber is showing you something. Images flickered in the air around her, humans singing beside dragons, dragons shielding humans from darkness. A silver dragon with eyes like the emperor's fighting alongside a woman who looked familiar, Lira gasped. That's my grandmother, she whispered. The image shifted, showing her grandmother holding an infant. A lullaby hummed. A dragon stood behind her protectively. Lyra's heart pounded. My family was dragon singers, she breathed. The emperor bowed his head, something rare. Yes, he said, your bloodline is old. The images vanished, the light faded, the chamber dimmed again. Lira fell to her knees, trembling. Ember curled beside her protectively. The emperor approached her slowly. Kneeling, a gesture no dragon ever gave a human. Lira, he said softly, your grandmother hid the last spark of dragon singer blood. She saved it from those who wished to destroy it. Lira wiped her eyes. Why me? Why did it awaken in me? Because, the emperor said gently, you loved without fear, you sang without thinking, you reached for a crying child instead of your own safety. He lifted her chin with one claw carefully, delicately. And because the galaxy needs you now. Lira stared at him. What do you need me to do? The Emperor's wings opened slowly like the beginning of dawn. You must help me heal my spirit, he said. Help my son awaken fully and help rebuild the bond between humans and dragons. He paused and his voice became softer, and you must survive the war that is coming. Lyra's breath caught. War against Kairos, against rebels, against those who feared the truth. And if I fail, Lira whispered. The Emperor looked at Ember, then back at her. Then dragons and humans will fall together. A long silence filled the chamber, then Lira stood tired, afraid, trembling, but somehow stronger. If this is my fate, she said softly, I won't run. The Emperor bowed his head. Then let the truth guide us, he said. From this day forward, you are not just a dragon singer. His voice became deep, powerful, ancient. You are the last light of the old bond. Ember chirped, glowing warmly beside her, and the chamber, as if agreeing, lit once more in gentle blue flames. The truth was revealed. Now the war would begin. The secret chamber under the palace had shown Lira what humans once were. It had shown the Emperor what dragons had lost. But outside, in the wide empire of fire and stars, fear spread faster than truth. Rumors moved from planet to planet, station to station. A human healed the Emperor's spirit. A human calmed the imperial dragonling. A human song broke a void weapon. A human and a dragonling glowed like a star in the heart of the palace. Some dragons called it a miracle, some called it blasphemy, some called it the end of their rule. On many worlds, humans heard the rumors in whispers, in dirty kitchens, in mines, in cold factory rooms. And in each place a tiny spark lit in their hearts. If one human could stand in front of the Emperor himself, if one human could make dragons listen, maybe we were not always slaves. The empire began to shift, slowly, dangerously. Days after the attack, the celestial palace still wore its scars. Some halls were sealed by force fields. Some sections floated in zero gravity while repair crews worked. The red dying star outside continued its slow burn, as if watching everything with tired eyes. Lyra stood beside a wide window, Ember perched on her shoulder, his tail around her neck like a warm ribbon. You can feel it, can't you? She whispered to him. Ember hummed softly. She could feel it too, a strange pull. The sense that something big was coming, bigger than Kairos, bigger than the council. Footsteps echoed behind her. She turned. The Emperor approached, his silver scales polished again, the wound on his chest now a faint, glowing crack instead of an open burn. Varos and Gorn followed at a distance. The council has been summoned, the Emperor said. All of them, no more secret moves in shadows, no more whispers behind my back. Today they speak in the open. Lyra swallowed. Will they accept the truth? Some will, Varos said. Some would rather see the empire burn than change. The Emperor looked at Lyra and Ember together. This will be their last chance to choose, he said. And mine. Your last chance for what? Lyra asked. To decide what kind of emperor I wish to be, he answered. He turned toward the great doors of the throne hall. Walk with me. The throne hall had been rebuilt in a hurry. Cracked pillars were patched with glowing metal. New banners hung from the ceiling, silver dragons on a field of deep blue. The burning smell was mostly gone, but if you breathed in too deep, you still caught the memory of smoke. Today, the hall was full. Dragons of every rank circled the room, warlords from distant fleets, elder scholars, council members with long curved horns and jeweled armor. Their eyes all followed Lyra as she entered with the Emperor. Some looked at her with curiosity, some with silent hatred, some with something like fear. Ember stood proudly on Lyra's shoulder, higher than usual, as if he refused to hide. Varos and Gorn took their places along the wall near the Emperor's throne. The Emperor climbed the steps to his seat and turned to face the hall. When he spoke, his voice carried to every corner. Council of the Dominion, he said, you have been called here to face the truth. A counselor with bronze scales and heavy rings around his horns stepped forward. We are here, he said coldly, to discuss your human. Murmurs rippled through the hall. Lyra's hands tightened. Ember hissed quietly. The Emperor's eyes flashed. My human has a name, you will use it. She is Lyra, dragon singer, last light of the old bond. Some dragons scoffed, others shifted uncomfortably. A tall dragon with black and red scales stepped forward. His horns were sharp and a scar crossed his snout. We all saw what she did during the attack, he said. We do not deny her power. That is exactly why she must be removed. A human who can touch royal spirits, who can shape a dragonling's power. Today she sings for you, tomorrow she could bend you. Lyra flinched. The Emperor didn't look away. She will not bend me, he said calmly. She is not a chain, she is a bridge. A bridge to what? Another counselor snapped. To human rule, to the days when they dared to stand beside us instead of under us. Varos spoke for the first time. And what did those days give us? He asked softly. Victory against the void touched. We did not stand alone then. We would not have survived alone. The hall quieted. The Emperor stepped forward, leaving his throne behind. Long ago, he said, we dragons chose fear over trust, pride over truth. We burned our history. We broke the bond. We cut down the Naratel, the human dragon singers, until only a few bloodlines hid in shadows. He looked at Lyra. One of them lived and now stands here. The bronze counselor sneered. You speak as if this is some holy sign. It could be a test or a trap from the void touched. You know they twist minds, they make tools from weakness. Before the emperor could answer, the hall suddenly dimmed. Every crystal in the ceiling flickered. The air turned cold for a moment. Lira shivered. What was that? She whispered. Varro's eyes widened. I know this feeling. A low, distant noise rolled through the walls. Not sound, more like pressure, a presence, a thought that didn't belong. The emperor's eyes darkened. No, he turned to the huge window behind the throne. Open the outer view, he commanded. The shielded glass cleared, the red star shone outside, and beyond it the dark. Shapes moved there, not ships, not dragons, shadows with eyes. Lyra felt something press at the edges of her mind, a whisper, cold, hungry. You remember, we broke you before. She staggered. Ember hissed fiercely, blue sparks spraying from his mouth. Varro snarled, the void touched. They've returned, Gorn said, horror in his voice. We never finished them. They were only wounded, waiting. The council erupted in shouts. Raise the fleet, seal the palace, send the human away, they will use her against us. The emperor lifted his head. Enough, his roar silenced them. They are here now, he said, and they know where we are. There is no time to hide, no time to pretend we are the same as we were before. He looked at the swirling dark beyond the star. If we fight alone, we die like before. My spirit still remembers that battle. He turned back to the hall. If we fight together, if we accept what Lira is, we may survive. The black-handred counselor spat a spark. You would risk the entire dominion on a human and a hatchling. Lyra's heart pounded in her ears. She had never wanted this, not to be the center of a war, not to be a symbol. She just wanted to help a crying child. But now dragons, stars, and history looked at her waiting. Ember climbed onto her head, tiny claws gentle. He stared at the council with fierce little eyes. The emperor spoke again. This is the final decision, he said, not only for me, for all of you. He pointed one claw at Lyra. You can hunt her, kill her, and continue pretending dragons need nothing from anyone. And when the void touched reach your minds, your hearts, your spirits, you will break, one by one, and there will be no song to pull you back. He then pointed at Ember. Or you can accept that the old bond has returned, accept that humans are not just workers but allies, accept dragon singers back into the sky, and together we will stand against the dark again. The hall trembled with the weight of his words. A long, heavy silence fell. Lyra looked down at her hands. They were shaking. She stepped forward. I want to say something, she whispered. Every dragon turned. Even the emperor seemed surprised. He nodded. Speak. Lyra's voice was small in the huge hall, but it did not break. I know I am only one human, she said. I know I came from a farm, not a school. I know I cannot fight like you. I can't breathe fire. I can't fly. Some dragons snorted. Others just watched. But I know how it feels to be afraid, she continued. To be small, to be helpless, to have the sky belong to someone else. Her eyes burned, but she did not cry. When Ember cried that night, I didn't think about dragons or empires. I only thought, she looked at the dragonling. No baby should cry like that and be alone. Ember purred. I sang because my mother sang to me, Lyra said. Because somewhere my grandmother used to sing for dragons. They never told me that, but my heart remembered. She looked around the hall. You call me dangerous. Maybe I am. Maybe caring is dangerous. Maybe healing is dangerous. Maybe reminding people they need each other is dangerous. She took a breath. But if I'm a danger, I am not a danger to you. She pointed at the swirling dark outside. I am a danger to them. The hall was quiet. Even the whispers in the back of her mind from the void touched faded for a moment like they were listening too. Lyra turned to the emperor. You asked them to choose, she said softly, but you also have to choose. He stared at her, eyes shining. Choose what kind of ruler you will be, she said. The kind who stands alone on a high throne, or the kind who reaches down and lifts others up beside him. The words hung in the air like a challenge and a plea. The emperor closed his eyes. He remembered fire and void. He remembered dragons screaming as invisible claws tore their minds. He remembered fighting until half his spirit cracked. He remembered 3 days and nights of his son crying, then a human song. When he opened his eyes again, the decision was made. He turned to the council and spoke loud enough for the entire Dominion to feel it. From this moment, he said, humans are no longer slaves of the Draken Dominion. The hall erupted, some in shock, some in rage, some in stunned silence. The emperor raised his voice above them all. They will work beside us, not beneath us. Their voices will be trained, not silenced. The dragon singers will return. Lyra will be the first. Not the last, the bronze counselor shouted. You cannot do this. It goes against thousands of years of fear, Varro's cut in. It goes against thousands of years of running from a truth we could not kill. Gorn slammed his spear to the floor. I stand with the emperor. One by one, a few dragons bowed their heads. I stand with the emperor. I stand with the bond. I stand with the dragon singer. Others stayed silent. Some turned away. A few, including the black-handred counselor, glared with pure hatred. This is madness, he hissed. You doom us all. He spread his wings. I will not follow this path. He turned to leave. The emperor watched him go, eyes sad but firm. Then you stand alone, he said. The counselor paused at the door. Not alone, he spat. There are many who still know what dragons are supposed to be. He left. Several others followed. The empire was no longer one shape. It was splitting, but Lyra felt something strange. relief. Not because there would be no more danger, there would be a lot more, but because the lie was broken. The Emperor turned back to the window. Outside, the shadows of the void touched crept closer like smoke reaching for a flame. He looked at Lira and Ember. "Can you stand with us?" he asked. Lira nodded. Her fear did not vanish, but something else grew beside it, courage. "I will sing," she said, "as long as I have breath." Ember spread his wings and gave a sharp, bright cry that echoed through the hall. His body glowed brighter than ever. The air around him pulsed with blue fire. Veros whispered, "It is time." The light wrapped around Ember, swirling like a cocoon. When it faded, the tiny dragonling stood taller, wings larger, eyes like twin stars. In the silence that followed, a word formed, not spoken by any mouth, but felt in every mind. Kaler. Lyra heard it. The Emperor heard it. Every dragon did. "What was that?" Lyra breathed. The Emperor's voice was full of wonder. "His true name," he said. "Kaler, flame that bridges." Ember Kaler looked at Lyra and then at the Emperor, a small dragon, but also something much more, the first of a new age. The Emperor looked out at the dark, at the waiting enemy. "Then let the void touch come," he said. "Let them see what humans and dragons can be together." He spread his wings. "We choose our future today." Lyra stepped up beside him, Kaler on her shoulder, ready to sing, not as a servant, not as a slave, as the first dragon singer of a rising human race, as the last light of the old bond, as the beginning of something new. And far beyond the dying red star, in places where the dark listened carefully, the void touched finally felt something they had never felt from the Dominion before. Not fear, not pride, harmony, and something in that harmony scared them.